Hey guys, it's Linda Winter with another Winter Designs project. This one is my scissor holder template. I don't want you to get dismayed with it's only going to hold scissors. No, it's going to hold a bunch of stuff. It's a zipper pouch. So let me just show you what I mean. This is my storage pod. That's not what we're talking about here. But the storage pod is a really great container to put stuff in. If you know somebody that loves Disney stuff, you got the little stuffed things that you find. You got the socks. You got the little pom-pom that goes with the handle. But this is what's in here because you can do a theme. You all know I like themes. So I did the Disney theme. And this is Mickey Mouse, Minnie, and Mickey. You'll see in just a minute. Because this little pouch, not for scissors. This is, I know we still have to wear masks in some places they're required. So this is a face mask. Right here, my face mask template. I've got one if you don't like wearing masks and you don't want it really too close to your face. I've got this style here. This is my style 2, and the one that we're looking at right now is my style 1. These bandanas, they sit loosely on your face and they drape down kind of over your neck. They don't really get tight on you. So if you know somebody that has to wear a mask, like a little girl, you can do whatever fabric you want, or a little boy too, but you can put it in a case like this. So I've added the mask, I've added some wet wipes, I've added some hand sanitizer, I have some lip gloss for when she's allowed to take the mask off, and all of that stuff can go right back in here. Add a Ziploc baggie in there too, so she can put the dirty mask once she's worn it in there. But you can see there's a little heart. I've got the tab for the zipper, and let's take a look at how this is made. It's a little bit different than your other styles of zipper pouches. Oh, there's my pin. You can see right here I've got this wide open area, and this is finished off nicely. This over here is finished off nicely. What that means is when you go to zip this, you've got a wide mouth opening because this goes all the way there. Look how cool that is. When you unzip this, it lets you get right in. A lot of zipper pouches, whatever it is that you make, they tend to finish like right here. And so you don't have all that opening. You're going to lose a half of an inch at least on both ends. And with this, you've got all the length of that zipper pouch to be able to do this. So a scissor holder, this guy here, was made from this guy here. So this template makes this. So you can use it for scissors. So let's take a look at how this is done. This guy here is the scissor pouch. So let's take a look at what's in here. I've got my gnomes, and if y'all are part of the No Gnome Club, I apologize, but I still have a lot of gnome stuff, and I still have a lot of people that tell me how much they love gnomes. Do you see how big these guys are, those pinking shears? They fit in here. I made it a little bit bigger than you would think you would need to, because not only will your regular scissors fit in, but I want your pinking shears to fit in there too. So you can put in your pinking shears, you can put in your stilettos, you can put in whatever it is that you want. All of these things I'm going to take out because I'm actually going to be using these. All right, so if we look at the fabric, I've got a directional fabric. So we want to make sure when we cut that this straight edge right here is going to be where the zipper is. What's nice about that too is that makes it a whole lot easier. I'm not dealing with a curve for the zipper. So when we're looking at both sides, we want to make sure that both sides have that direction up. You could put a fold in here, but what good is it going to do you because you've got this curve right here. So it's not one of those that if you did the zipper here, right in here, and you wanted to put the fold, that would work. But we are doing it a little bit faster, easier because the zipper is on the top here. And again, I have that wide mouth opening here, so you can see it's finished off nicely. I added a little carabiner, kind of a clip, not really a carabiner, but a little clip that's right here, and just a small piece of fabric. You can use ribbons, you can use fabric, you can use bias binding tape, whatever it is that you want, and you can add a longer piece on, like I did here, and not have any hardware. And you can see I've got a label that I sewed on. That's my Winter Designs label. Isn't that cool? I ordered these a while ago and I forgot that I had them. So there's my Winter Designs logo. And this one here, this is for, If you wanted to make it for a man, it's a little bit more masculine. And what did I do? I created a man's mask as well. I had a lot of people asking for masks done in black, especially when you go to church. So you can make it on black on one side and reversible. And again, you know, if you still have to wear masks. And there are a lot of places that you have to go where you're wearing masks. You notice again what I've done here for the zipper, you're going to create a zipper tab. There are lots of different ways to do zipper tabs. And again, what you do over here is totally up to you. I'm going to show you a couple different options. Here's, if we're really making it for sewing tools, I use some sewing fabric. I love this fabric. And if you notice too, this is a whole lot loftier here. This one here and this one here, they're both SF101. That's an interfacing fusible. It's a lightweight woven here and here. But then I have fusible foam here and here. And you can see on this one, it's really flimsy. This guy here, I don't particularly like that because it's a lot flimsier. This is SF101 and this is a lightweight fleece. But you can see I used a zipper that's a little bit bigger in the teeth and a decorative zipper. And again, I've used ribbon for the handle here too. We're going to be making one with the SF101 and then a lightweight fleece for the outside with a layer of SF101 as well. So it's kind of a double duty kind of thing. I want to show you what you can do with the template as well. This one is a whole lot smaller. Do you see how much smaller that one is? And same thing with this. You can use this template if you want to make it smaller. Darla made this for me and it was part of a project book that she had. And notice there's Velcro here. So you can stick that on a project book, an organizer, those kinds of things, even for your school notes and those kinds of things. Do Velcro and then Velcro on the bookcase or whatever it is, book cover. But you can use the template to make it smaller. When you cut around, and then just cut a little bit narrower or make a wider seam allowance. And you can see these two are almost the same size. Now I added over here the little charm, and I love doing these little charms here. Let me get this out of the way. And can you see I have a charm with a little clip, and then I've added the little dangle here, and then this jump ring here is for your keys. So those are a whole lot of fun to do too. We're going to look up front and I want to show you some that I'm going to offer on my website. I do a lot of things for kids and dogs and babies and that kind of stuff. So I've got dogs, universal ones. Here's love with a footprint or a little paw print. House or home is wherever my human is. Precious. Cat stuff over here. If you're into yarn, there's some yarn. There's dog in the front, more dog in the front. I've got a ton of quilting ones. This is the only one that I grabbed real fast. These guys here are really versatile to add. If you look right here, this is what I added on here with the ribbon. And then I added one of these on top of there, just wound this through on this piece here. And then the carabiner that I mentioned, there's a bunch of carabiners that you can get from all different places, different sizes, different colors, different shapes, all those things. So all of these guys are a whole lot of fun to add onto your projects. There's also these kinds of things. I had a bunch that were neon and that were all sparkly and all kinds of things. And could I find any of them for this video? No, I had them yesterday though. Pom-poms, I have a ton of these kinds of things that you can clip on. You can imagine how much fun you can have with all the embellishments. Even this one with the leather here, you can see how that one just kind of clips on. So you guys decide how embellished you want these to be. So tons and tons of choices when it comes to adding on to what it is you're doing. Even hearts and those kinds of things. And some of you have bought these from me from my website, and I've got a whole lot more that if you're interested in these, just give me a call and I can take pictures and send you what it is that I have. The dog and cat and the kitties and all the sewing and knitting ones, those will be going on my website in a little bit. Okay, so we're going to use the template to be able to cut out our fabric. And we talked about cutting before with direction in mind. So I have directional fabric here. When I put my template here, there's not a fussy cut frame. If you want one, of course I can make one for you, but I'm basically looking and thinking, I like this kitty, I like this kitty, I like this kitty. This kitty is too close to the bottom, so he's not going to be in there. So basically I'm going to be cutting this direction. That's what I have planned here. If I had my fabric over here, imagine I was cutting this way. Do you see what I would be getting this way? What I've already done is cut one of these. Here's the first one. So this one right here, when I look at this This one you can see I cut from the back side. So when I cut this out, I cut from here. With this one, you're basically going to be stacking. Imagine I have 2 rectangles like that. We're going to be cutting the inside lining, and one of these. I wanted to cut one out to show you directional. Let me show you how it's really important that you plan this out correctly. You can see my kitties, and can you see they're both in the same direction? One should have been cut from the back side. Imagine the kitties on the front. Don't do that. That's what you do at 2 in the morning, or when you've been doing too many things, or you're talking on the phone at the same time you're doing that. So make sure that these guys here are going to be able to stack correctly. Those don't stack up correctly. So we've cut this one already, and this one again was cut from the back side of the fabric. So I'm good to stack this on top of here. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to place that down. So lining right sides together. They're polka dots. There's no big deal there, but I want to make sure when I cut this, that this guy here is going in the right direction. So we're going to place this on top. I'm looking to see, I've got fish here, I've got my kitties down here. So I want to make sure that this little kitty gets some of that in there. So I'm going to turn this as much as I can, looking at the bottom here, and make sure that I've got enough fabric here, enough fabric here. All right, we're going to use the Martelli rotary cutter, and I'm a lefty. And notice what I did here. I cut at an angle. I don't really care that my fish aren't going to be directional or aren't going to be straight, but if that bothers you, then I wouldn't have had it at the angle. I'm going to turn that template. Why is this working? The no slip material on the backing. Sometimes it's going to be gray, sometimes it's going to be brown. It just depends on when I had these templates made. So when they were last cut. So when I turn this template, you can see how that's going to cut all of this consistently. And what do I have? I have 3 layers of SF101, I have 3 layers of fabric, and I have 1 layer of the fusible fleece right here. So this template, because of the no slip material on the back, no slipping, no kidding, you can see how that grabs. All right, so now we're going to line everything up. These guys are going to be going like this here. These guys inside of here are going to be going like that. So this is basically my zipper pouch or my scissor holder. All right, so what do we want to do? We want to add our zippers. We're going to do a little bit differently. Remember, we're going to be using a wider opening. So this area right here, I want that to have that zipper tucked down in there. I'm going to fold it back. And then this over here, I want it to be open, this to be a nice wide open. So when we get over there, we're going to get the zipper out of the way. Choose your zipper color. I've got my outer fabric, I've got my lining fabric, and we're going to be stitching those together. So when we add a zipper like this, we've got plenty of room up here, but we've also got plenty of a tail here. If you wanted to, think about how long you want this to be, and it's totally up to you, because when we open this up, that wide mouth, this doesn't need to be but even 1 inch. So you don't need to have all that excess, but I like it. But the idea is you could actually take the little bit that's left over and stitch this together, cut that off, stitch that together, and that piece could go right in here to hold whatever hardware you want to have. So if you wanted some zipper to hold not so much this hardware, but there's hardware that's much bigger, and you can clip those on. And when you have that hardware, it's a really cool look to be able to take advantage of a zipper, and it's something you would be throwing away, cutting off, whatever it is. So you can add bias fabric. This is just a strip, basically like bias tape that I did. Over here, I added the ribbon. I have ribbon, but this is turned into a handle and it's much thicker. Here's another ribbon, it's thinner. Here's some fabric that I've folded and folded in half again and then stitched, kind of like binding. And this right here, you can see how I've stitched that down. If you did the zipper, this would be a perfect one. This guy here would be perfect for that zipper. So the width of this needs to match the width of this, if you think about why that makes sense. Now, the other thing that makes sense with all of this is the shorter, the narrower end, where we put that handle, where we put the strap, where we put the charm, whatever it is. If I've got scissors inside of here, the scissors are going to be pointing this way. When I hold something, having the strap here and having the handles here and the tips here, that's not going to damage my fabric. If you do what I did for the first one, this was the first one that I made, look where I put the handle. If you have your scissors in here, the points are here, and when you hold this, the points are going to stab that fabric and eventually poke through. So when you do put the handle on, this is a cool look. And one of the things I wanted to do was put kind of a strap like this. And how cool would that be? But if you're putting sharp stuff in here like scissors, this is not practical. If you're going to make a cute little one for a girl or something cool for a boy, putting a strap on here for a pencil case, no problem, because your pencils can be pointed that way. And when you've got the handle, no big deal. It's only because our scissors have the big handles here and the points are here that we want to avoid putting the strap here. Okay, hopefully that clicks with you guys, unlike it did with me for that very first one that I made. So let's go back to our zipper. So you can do this pink one here. This one you can see, to me, this is kind of the perfect length because this, I'm not going to waste any of this. And our zippers typically measure from where the teeth start to where the teeth end. So this is a 14-inch zipper. So a 14-inch zipper would be perfect for the scissor holder, the size that it's made. If you're making a smaller one, no big deal. That's going to give me enough room to be able to add my ending there. All right, so I'm going to use this one, and what we want to do is deal with this end. You can either tack this down, you can stitch that down, you can pin that down, you can clip that down. Do you see what I have here? So you decide what it is. This guy here, that silver, you really want to get that out of the way. And so we don't want that to be where we're sewing. So you can, again, pop that out if you want to, or you can do what I'm going to do and just clip it off. When you clip past there, don't get those scissors on that metal because it's going to damage your scissor. And you don't want to do any damage to your good scissors. If they're junky scissors, kitchen scissors, gardening, hardware scissors, whatever it is, you're okay. All right, so I don't have an end on here, so we don't want to, well, I'm not going to cut that off, so that's no big deal. But I don't want to, worry about any of the metal anymore. So we can, again, now fold this back if we want to. We can tuck that in, and we can stitch that down. What we're looking for, let's see if we can find, this one's a little bit bigger. And what we want to be able to do is see that that's going to give us a little bit of excess. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm just going to stitch this down a little bit. And sometimes this is not so pretty. You can use your pins, you can use your clips, whatever it is that you want. All right, so I've got a clip in place, just folding that back. And we're going to take this to the sewing machine. I'm going to put my needle down into that area first, drop the foot. And I'm going to remove that clip, hoping that stays in place. You can use a stiletto, you can use whatever it is to hope and push and make sure that we're catching all of that in there. All right, and I'm using a white thread. Of course, you'll use a matching thread. All right, I'm going to back stitch. And probably a little bit of that zipper is going to show. If you look right there, my little poke that I've got there, that little fold, that may or may not show. So I'm going to actually fold that back. See that part that's there? I'm going to fold that back and stitch that one more time. All we want to do is basically turn an angle on this. And for the one side of the zipper, we're turning to the right. For the other side of the zipper, we're turning to the left. All right, so let's take a look at what we've done here. And then we're going to attach our zipper in maybe a way you all have done before, or maybe not. I've got two layers here, one with a fusible fleece and an SF101, and the other one with SF101, so they're different weights. So what I want to do, let's take a look at our zippers. All right, so there I've got that zipper out of the way. This one you can see how that's in the way there. That's probably going to show a little bit. I'm kind of okay. The white stitches, when I get this sewn in, I'll pick out that zipper. I'm really okay with that. All right, so we have got the outside, we've got the lining. And what we want to do is teeth down. And I usually have the zipper all the way for the beginning just to be able to place. And what we're going to do here is look to see, remember we're giving ourselves about 5/8, 3/4, an inch from the edge. And when I have this here, look at how much excess that I have over here. So you can do one of two things. You can add the zipper and then later on add the little tail on there. And remember, we can do a wider piece like this. There's a wider piece. You can do, where's the one that I have that's basically This is the method that I'm going to show you today. It's basically the width of that zipper. So we'll look at that. There's a ton of different ways that you can do that. I like to do it now, but I'm going to go ahead and do it later just because we're in this process. Okay, so again, 1/2 inch, 3/4, 5/8, an inch. Our seam allowance is going to be here, and we want that curve to be right not in the seam. So when we look at this, you can see how it's not quite in that seam. We're giving this opening here. If you're top stitching, by the way, you can top stitch and stop right here. I didn't do any top stitching here. I did some top stitching here. Let's open that up. And you can see I stopped with the top stitching there. Why didn't I go all the way? Because it's pretty bulky right here, especially at that seam, and especially if you're using a fusible fleece or a fusible foam. All right, so you can, if you want to, pin, 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 clip, clip, clip. I'm going to do both of these at the same time. So I'm going to add this tape. So if you don't know about the tape, this is Dret's Wash Away Wonder Tape. I've really gotten into Wonder Tape. I used to feel like I was kind of cheating, and now I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. We want to put this to the edge of the zipper. We don't want to have it close to the zipper teeth because that's going to end up showing, because some of your zipper teeth, that area in between the zipper and the zipper teeth, that's going to be showing. So you notice what I'm doing. I'm starting, I gave myself a little bit of space here. And I do recommend maybe even going a little bit further away from where I did, but that's okay. All right, we're going to put this here. And we're going to cut that off. Now take any tool you like. I really like Phillips Stiletto. And we've got a video on that for you if you haven't seen it. And I'm going to use this flat edge right here, this angled edge. And I'm just going to really push on here really, really well. What I want to do is when I go to peel this off, I don't want to worry about any of that tape coming off. This is not a permanent tape. This is a temporary tape, but that means you can sew through it. It also means if you ever washed this, that this tape would come out. So it's not like the Sela tape that I have that's permanent, but you can't sew through it. All right, so we've brayered that down a little bit. You can use tweezers, you can use your scissors, you can use whatever. If I can get to the end and get it to start coming off without having to score this. Let's see, I'm going to give it one more time. Well, we're almost there. All right, so if you can't do that, then go ahead and score. And scoring just means ripping through. And you can see how I'm ripping through that, and now it's going to peel right off. If you ever watched Carol Duvall, I've talked about Carol Duvall before. She always struggled with that, and I always had to laugh because I felt right at home with Carol. Okay, so we're going to, again, 3/4, 1/2 inch, wherever it is from that edge. And I'm going to be right here, and do you see how I've given myself a little bit further than close to the edge, a little bit closer to the edge. I'm about 1/2 inch, but that's okay. And I'm just going to be pushing down. Let's see where my end of my tape is, right about here. And we're going to be pulling this part down a little bit later on. When I pull that down, that's what's going to give me this opening that's here. Okay? All right, so we've got our tape, and the one thing we're looking for right now is that this edge and the zipper edge are lined up straight. And again, we're going to go ahead and brayer. Just want to make sure everything is right in place. All right, and then what we're going to do is place this on top. And you can use the tape if you want, but what I find is that as long as I've got that first layer, I'm pretty comfortable with that. All right, let's look at what it is that we're going to be doing. We're going to be stitching that on that side. When we finish with that side, then we're going to be taking the other two pieces and we're going to be putting them over here. So if you've done zipper bags before, no big deal. If you haven't done zipper bags before, then this method might be new to you. And again, using the tape, this wash away tape, I've got it on my website, but you can get it at your Joann's or wherever it is, and find it and use it. And don't worry about wasting it because it's meant to be there for you. All right, so you can clip, clip, clip. You can pin, pin, pin. I'm going to grab my clips. And I love these little guys. I've got bundles that have 2 different sizes. And there is a top and a bottom on here. I don't really care. They have measurements on there. See the bottom that's there versus the top? I don't really care so much. When I'm dealing with a really heavy fusible, these guys are great. When we start adding all those layers together, when you do something like this and you've got all these layers right here, then those big clips make all the difference in the world. Okay, we've got one more clip to put. And the other thing you can do too is you can add a clip right here. That's just going to hold all those together. All right, and then what we want to do is look to make sure that this is fairly lined up. All right, I'm going to turn this over, and I don't want to see a lot of that fabric over here. Even though these don't line up exactly, I'm okay with that. The bump of the zipper is going to pull this fabric over a little bit, but we'll add a clip here. All right, we've got the zipper foot on. You're going to use your standard 2.6 or whatever seam allowance, and what we're going to be doing is starting right at the edge. When we start at the edge, that's going to take that zipper, and you can see where the zipper teeth are. And again, I probably would have scooted it down just a little bit. Okay, so we're going to start at that edge. At the sewing machine, bring that needle down. And if you've used a zipper foot before, terrific. If you haven't, and you don't have one, you don't have to use a zipper foot, but it does make it a nice thing to have. All right, so we're going to give a little bit of a push, get rid of the first clip. And if you do want to use a tool to help you to hold things in place, I've got Phillips stiletto that's here. You can also use this flat edge, just kind of to hold it in place there. I'm basically holding it like this as I go, and that just kind of holds everything down, and it just keeps everything together. And I'm just going to take my time, don't worry about it. Get yourself a bowl for those clips as you take them off. I'm just throwing them on my table. Make sure that the zipper or your fabrics have not moved any. Where you've got all of this lined up, if they've moved, remember we put our zipper and the zipper with the lining or the outside fabric together, but not the lining. So you want to make sure that everything has stayed together. Now I'm still several inches away from the end, but when I get to about an inch away from the end, we're going to remove this clip. And I want to take this tail, it's hard to see that gray, but we're going to pull it down this way. So we're going to pull it to the left. And I'm basically, remember we put that tape on there, so I'm going to pull a little bit, but I'm going to pull, and I've got probably an inch there, and I'm just pulling it out of the way. And then I'm going to bring that fabric right back on top. And we're going to back stitch there. I didn't back stitch at the beginning, so we're going to go ahead, and right now I'm going to go a little bit further and we're going to go back stitch. I find that when I first start, my machine doesn't like to back stitch at the very beginning, so I'll usually sew and then I'll go back. Okay, let's get rid of these clips and take a look at what it is that we've done. All right, so we can see this right here. That is right in where I want it. My seam allowance is going to be basically here, so that's going to give me that opening. Let's go look at this end. And do you see that little bit of a tape there? I could actually have left it tucked in a little bit more, but you get the idea. That tape's going to come out. It's washable, so I can just add some water onto it. This is going to have my seam allowance here, so that's going to give me this good amount of opening that I have right there. And I'm good with all that space and with all this space here too. Okay, so we've done one side. Now what we want to do is do the same thing over here, basically to this. You can do a finger press, but what we don't want to do is top stitch. We're not going to be top stitching now. If you want to top stitch, again, fusible foam, we're not going to top stitch. If you are, you're going to top stitch here and stop here. Don't try. I mean, that's a ton of fabric. If you have an industrial, no big deal. But we're not really kind of gearing this towards this video, at least towards people that have industrials, because you guys know what it is you're doing. All right, so what are we going to do? We're going to place this guy on. Remember, we're going to be looking at this here. So I've got my fabric, So this guy here, remember, this is going to be going this away. And we're going to be placing this on here. All right, so let me clear off my table and get everything organized, and we'll clip these and get it ready to go. All right, so we've got 1/2 of our zipper pouch done, our scissor holder done. So we're ready to look at our directional fabric outside, directional face up. We're going to be placing this face down. This is going to go on this side of the zipper. When we place that on side of the zipper, we're going to take this piece and that's going to go behind it. And what that'll give us, those 2 layers here, that will give me my lining. And these 2 layers will give my outside fabric. So I'm going to move this out of the way. And if we look at this the way we're seeing it, to me, that's the easiest way to just kind of deal with it. All right, so we're going to put this down again, and I'm leaving my teeth still. So the teeth of the zipper still closed for now because it's just easier for me to work with that zipper closed. We don't really have to worry about opening that zipper up till a little bit later on when we go to turn, or if those teeth are in the way. I'm using a number 3 zipper. You can use a number 5 on here. I used a number 5 on a couple of the projects. It's just totally up to you. You can use a metal zipper too. It's just when you're working with metal, you've got to deal with that a little bit different. All right, so we've got that on there. Remember, we're going to brayer this down. So I'm going to turn all of this and just give this a really good rub. And again, I'm using the wedge part of this stiletto. Use whatever it is that you have, but we just want to have that really, really tight on there. So when we go to peel that off, we're not wasting our efforts. Okay, and can you see there how I basically just started peeling that off? So we're good to go. That started it on my own. Maybe that's what I need to do, is just use the stiletto instead. So you can see that little piece there just lets me peel all that off. All right, not only are we lining up with the zipper edge, but we're also going to line up this part here. So we're looking at our edges, and I'm looking here and I'm looking over here, and I'm going to flip this over now. And do you see, I want to get this lined up with the edge of the zipper and the edge of my outside fabrics. We don't want to start pressing till we get everything lined up. And I think you all can see that probably a little bit better there. And once I get that lined up, I'm going to fold that back over again. And we're looking to see, okay, and then we're going to brayer again. All right, so that's on there pretty good. And then we're going to take this piece, and again, if we look at what we have here, this is going to line up. And I'm looking at this edge, and I'm looking at this edge, and this is where we're going to clip. And if you wanted to add a clip here and add a clip on the other side, you could do that as well. And when we clip these together, we're not only going to look at this side, but we're going to flip it over on the back side to make sure that all these layers are lined up. All right, see how that's not lined up there? So we're going to take a moment. And even though that is the part that I want to have flipped out a little bit, I still don't want to lose all of that. All right. And I think it's easier to work on the cotton side, but you decide. All right, so actually we're going to work on this side. Why? Because this zipper, we're going to be pulling that out of the way. So we're going to start here. I'm going to stitch. I'm not going to back stitch. When I finish down here, I'm going to come back and stitch backwards. I think it's just easier to start. You could start actually here and then back stitch, but I'm going to start right at the edge and stitch my way, but back stitch later. All right, I'm going to scoot this clip down a little bit to give me a little bit more room. And now at the sewing machine. All right, we'll put the needle down. And then that foot down. I'm going to grab my brayer. Let's pull this over so I can throw my clips in there. And I'm working on the fusible fleece side, and so your foot may want to grab that fusible fleece. That's why I like to work on that cotton. But again, since we're doing something a little different to the tail, we're going to think a little bit differently here. And I do have a little bit of the fabric showing here. I would take the time and move that back in position. But since we're working on this for the video, we're okay with this. All right, so I'm a couple inches away at this point. But when I get a little bit further along, what am I going to do? I'm going to pull this zipper right here out of the way. So I want to give myself an inch or so. Now, you can, from the other side, mark if you want to. I'll show you that in a second. I'm not going to back stitch yet. I want to look to see what it is that I've done, and I want to show you what I mean by you can mark. So you could have, when you got to here, when you worked on that first side, you could have marked over here on this fabric to make sure that it was pulled out at about the same amount. But again, that's going to be right here, and this distance and that distance. I'm okay with one side being a little bit more, a little bit less. This tape right here, again, I'm going to wash that off with just a little bit of water before I would give this to somebody. But do you see how this area here is open and that area here is open? Okay, let's take a look and see what it is that we have. We've got down here my zipper that's curved here, and that gives me enough for my seam allowance, so I don't have to worry much about that. We've got a nice pretty zipper, and we're ready now to start connecting our sides together. All right, so we're going to bring this here. You can take the time to press. I highly recommend that you do take the time to press. I'm not going to give this much of a press right now just because I want you all to be able to see the process, but we do want to press. Do you see that right here? I want that out of the way when I go to clip these sides together. But remember what we're going to be doing? We're going to be adding, not here, we're going to be adding here. So when we go to add that, we're going to be adding that piece right inside of here. So I'm going to use this black. We're going to fold that over. This is going to go on side. Inside of there, I should say, we're going to stitch that down. So this is going to go in here. And you've got to decide how much it is you want to stitch. Now, do you see this ribbon is pretty loose in there? I would really recommend that you go ahead and cut yourself a strip of fabric and fold it in half, give a good press, fold it in half, fold it in half, fold it in half. Do you see how that here? Do you see how that's just a lot better? Let's go ahead and do that, I think. Do you see how that just holds it a little bit firmer than this? So a ribbon sometimes, so let's go ahead and do this. I want to show you how you can use one of the rulers that you may or may not have. So I'm going to move all of these out of the way. We're going to come to the iron. We're not using the pink. And let's press this down, because I basically just showed you the folding process, but we do want it to look pretty decent. So I've got part of my tiny pouch rulers, a 2 by 12.5 and a 2.5 by 15. So right here, I've got a little bit more than 2.5. So we can cut, if we look to see how much we've got here, this guy here, it's not a whole lot, so I don't need a whole lot of fabric there. I'm going to go ahead and just cut myself a little piece here using this ruler. And I'm just going to cut along the edge. I'm going to move that, cut along the edge. I'm going to cut along the edge. And I'm not worried about all of this excess here because we're going to use our ruler. And if you notice what I've done here, I've used the metallic marker that I have, and you can mark that off if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and just line this up here. And you can see right here what I've got. I'm starting on my 1/2 inch. It doesn't really matter where I start, but I'm going to go ahead and just cut off right about here. And that's more than I need. But we're going to fold that in half and fold that in half and press. And we're just going to make our tab. This same process is what you can do for the zipper tab if you want to. A little bit differently, but use that ruler to do that. And if you didn't want to do this with the iron, let's go back to the stiletto and think about what that stiletto will do too. I showed in the video taking this with the stiletto, folding in half, and imagine that you've cut straight first. See how that gives a good press? Fold to here. Fold that over. And I would take the time to fold both of those, but you get the idea. Do you see how you can do that with this instead of with the iron? I'm going to go ahead and stitch this down. Let's test that out with our little jump ring piece, this guy here. And do you see how that's going to be nice and tight in there? Okay. I don't need all this excess fabric, so I'm basically going to be stitching here. This is going to go inside, and then we're going to basically attach it so it's got maybe 1/2 of an inch, not even sticking out. I've got my zipper foot on still, and that works fine. I just want to make sure I grab my threads, bring that needle down. And I'm using white thread because it's not going to show. And we'll go ahead and trim that off. All right. And you take the time to cut your threads, all of those good things to do. Okay, so this is going to be going inside of there. We'll be sticking that in a little bit later on. Okay, so we want to start at the corner or at the joins. So we're going to get this out of the way, tuck that down inside, because that tail is going to be sticking out. That's the end of our zipper. And I'm just looking to see that those edges are lined up. You can go the one direction and the other direction. Okay, so I've got this fold going that way, this fold going that way. And when you get to the sewing machine, that's just one of the things that you're going to do too. We're going to leave this open right here to turn. And right now we've got that zipper closed, so before we do any sewing, we're going to have to remember to get that zipper opened up. I'm going to put a pin here, just so you all remember to keep that open. And we're looking right here. And we're going to pull this in one direction and that in the other direction. Just keep those lined up. And remember, that's where your zipper has been turned backwards. Right, and the zipper teeth make this a little harder to line up, and they may not be perfectly even, and I'm okay with that. I used a small clip. I would recommend you use a bigger clip there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add our clips here. And you've got fusible fleece and SF101 on this side, so this is a whole lot bulkier than it is over here. So my seam allowance here is going to be narrower. My seam allowance over here is going to be wider. That way my lining just isn't as bunchy. Sometimes you may have to go back in once you turn it and adjust that lining a little bit too. Remember that zipper is right down in here, so we want to make sure that that's not caught anywhere in the seams. And a lot of times I won't do all the clipping that I'm doing here because as I sew, I'm going to be adjusting this anyway. Let's flip that over and see how there's a little bit of bunchiness there. We're okay with that. All right, because I'm going to be leaving this area open, I'm going to start stitching around this way. When we get over to here, that's where we're going to stop and add that in. I don't put that in now. I just find that it's one more thing that's there that I have to think about, you know, when I'm sewing, and I don't want to be hitting that. So I'm going to do that as we get a little bit further over there. Okay, so we're going to start right here. I'm using my zipper foot on as well. Now you don't need to, but I'm going to use my zipper foot. And the other thing too is, remember, this is my lining, so I'm going to have a wider seam allowance. I'm going to put my needle down, back stitch just a little bit. And if you have a sewing machine that allows you to adjust for pressure, mine allows me to adjust for pressure, and I've got it a little bit higher. There's a dial on the side of the machine. That's great when you're dealing with the fusible fleece and then you're dealing with cotton, but it also means you've got to go back and adjust it as you go. Okay, so right here, remember, this is where that zipper is, so I'm feeling that it's out of the way. All right, now I'm going to start getting narrower and narrower because my seam allowance here, because I have all this fleece that's here, I'm going to use a narrower seam allowance here as we go. And you can put on your regular foot if you want to. It's up to you. All right, remember this is where we're going to be adding this piece. This is where we're going to be adding coming up soon. What we want to do is make sure that we have this in here so that this seam here is lined up basically in line. Let me see if I can show you that. I'm going to see if I can make this crooked. See how that is crooked. I'll show you in a little bit. We'll pretend when we get to the table. I basically want to have that tucked inside, and this seam that I've stitched, that way it'll keep this piece here going straight. It won't be at an angle. So I'm going to place this inside, and I need to see those stitches because I don't want those stitches showing. The other thing too is for you to decide how far away from the zipper you want that to go. And I've got it a little bit more than halfway. All right. Now I'm not going to back stitch here because I want to make sure that I like my placement first before I actually come back and back stitch that really good. All right, that's the teeth of our zipper that have turned. And when I get to here, again, I'm going to make my seam allowance much wider. And I'm looking at the other side where I am down here to see basically where I was. And I back stitch a little bit. I've left that opening for turning. All right, so we've stitched all the way around, leaving our opening. We're going to reach inside, and when you leave that zipper unzipped a bit, you can get in and turn this out. Now, I recommend that you go ahead and keep this open so that you have the lining and you have the outside fabric so you can make sure both are nice and consistent. And earlier when I said don't press, this is when you do want to really press before you finish this project up. So don't cheat too much at those things. All right, we're going to take a look at that ring in just a minute, but we want to get all of this popped out and see how this looks. Let me get the rest of the zipper unzipped. And remember, we put that fabric inside when we did that, so I need to pull that, the rest of that tail out on top. Okay, and we haven't done the end, but we haven't cut off that other piece either, so I'm fine with opening that up. I don't recommend cutting that off because at that point that zipper would have come right off and we would not be having a good time right now. Okay, now we're going to start pushing through and we'll take a look and see if there's anything that we need to fix before we finish up. All right, I'm pushing out those corners, and again, go ahead before you put everything through, push this out. This is where the stiletto works really well too. That flat edge, I can go in and just give a really good, I don't know if y'all can see, I'm holding down tight and just pushing that open, those seams, so that I can get all of that. I call it finagling, and you just want to finagle those seams out. This is when if you did have any areas where, you know, if you did pinking shears, which I have not done yet, we're going to use pinking shears, but if you'd cut too close, this is when you're using this tool, the stiletto inside, that's when it would let you know that you missed and jumped over those stitches. Okay, so all of that, we're still good right there. And you can see here, I'm going to switch over to this point and get right in that corner because it's not looking so pretty. And the iron will make all the difference at that too. So will the pinking shears. All right, we're going to switch back over. We're going to pop that out some. We'll be turning this right sides out again and then tucking that inside, but I want to have this corner nice and pretty. Same thing over here. And I'm just using that flat edge, and I've got all these threads that you'll want to cut too. All right, so now we're going to tuck back inside. And the finagling part of this is still continuing. I'm feeling inside, I'm feeling inside. And you can see how with one layer of the lightweight fusible fleece and the SF101 on the outside, and the one layer of the SF101 doesn't give all of that really nice firmness that I like so much from the fleece. I think the the fusible foam, I think the fusible foam just does such a really good job of making everything so pretty. But, you know, it's a lot of bulk. All right, so we're going to trim some threads off. We're going to look to see what we've got here. We've got an opening to close. We've got a zipper tab to put on. I would, before I press that opening and close that opening, I would go inside with pinking shears and pink those edges. But you all get the idea. Okay, let's look at this. This was the piece. Do you see how this here, that edge and the black edge, those two are even? I have done where this is sticking out like that or sticking out like that. So we want those to be even. And it's very little fabric there. Why? I don't need a lot of wiggle there. If I'm going to be attaching, you know, one of these to this, I can put this on here. I can put this clip on here. I don't want a whole lot of wiggle room there. All right, so again, you would take the time to press all of this. And let's get over there. And I just threw my zipper tab fabric on the floor. So we'll grab it. Do you all throw things on the floor like I do? I do it not only when I'm filming, but I do it at home a lot. Now I'm pressing on the outside first, but I really want to press inside. And when I press inside, you all can't tell, but I'm pressing down in, away from the zipper, so that I've got that zipper fabric nice and open. And I'm going to let that cool for a minute because that's really hot to the touch. I've got this little iron that I love so much, and I'm just going right inside there. You can choose to top stitch if you want. We're not going to do that. Since we didn't do the pinking shear, we're certainly not going to top stitch. But I would really, on a project like this, with the fusible fleece and the SF101, not the foam, I would top stitch. Top stitching is just going to give it a much nicer look. It just is going to look a little bit more sturdy. You know, if you think about those really great pictures that you see online of projects, a lot of times they don't feel so good. They look amazing for the photographs, but they don't feel so good. So it does make a difference. All right, so take the time to do the top stitching, the pinking inside, and then what we would do for this. I will go back and I will turn this right sides out and I will pink, but do you see what I'm doing here? You're going to pull that, tuck that in a little bit, and as I pull it together, it does want to go together. And again, the stiletto works really well here. And you can see I would take the time to line that up a little bit more. Okay, so this corner here, we're going to tuck in back inside of there. So we would stitch that by hand or stitch that by machine. I stitch it by machine 99% of the time, just because I think it's not going to be shown, so it's not that big of a deal. Okay, so let's talk about our zipper tab. So this guy over here. All right, so we're going to close that a little bit. Oh, by the way, let's look over here. Okay, so I've got some threads there, but do you see how that gives me that nice opening? So when I open this up, this is all that way. And over here, remember how I said I did a 1/2 inch, and I probably would have done the 3/4 a little bit further. You can see how those are lined up right there. So give yourself a little bit more room, but you get the idea. It still gives me the whole opening of this bag. Okay? All right, so what are we going to do here? So we can use fabric, we can use ribbon, we can use whatever it is. If you're going to use fabric, we basically are going to be doing something like this and something like that. Okay? You can do it bigger if you want. The way I want to show you is exactly the same. The way that I want to show you is exactly the same width as this zipper. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of fabric, and I'm just going to cut myself here. And remember, we've got this 2 by whatever ruler. And if we wanted to do the 3 inches and 2 by 12.5, I say by whatever because you can do by 3, by 5, by whatever it is. All right, so we've got the selvage edge here, which is a little rough. And that actually, we'll leave that on there. So let's do 1, 2, 3. Oh, I have markings on here, 1, 2, 3. All right, so when we place this on here, my 3 right here, and do you see how lining that up to the edge? I'm looking here. And when I line that up, I'm already about 2 inches. So we're going to go ahead and cut that. And we're going to be basically making a little tube here, and that goes right inside. So this is going to stitch on like this. And remember this tab here, I talked about that. I can leave that on there because I'm not going to be sewing on top of that. That's not going to be an issue. We're basically going to be stitching here and creating a nice little tab for that, okay? So we're going to stitch here on. And I think I'll do a press. There's 1,000 different ways to do this. And I'm just going to show you one method. I want a finished edge. And remember the stiletto, I could use that too, but since I've got the iron here, I may as well go ahead and take advantage of that. All right, so I'm pressing here. And what I want to be able to do, basically, is this is going to go inside of here. Okay, we want to finish off those edges. If you want it the same width of the zipper, then we're going to stitch along. What we're going to end up doing, though, is just doing this. We're basically making a tube. We're going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch one side down. And I've still got that zipper foot on here, so you can use your regular foot if you want to. And I'm turning this back in the opposite direction just to finish off the top edges. We're going to cut those threads. We want to make this a little bit wider than the zipper. So when we place this zipper inside of here, that basically gives us where we're going to stitch this side down. So we're going to stitch that right, let's just do a little mark right about there. And then we'll turn this right sides out. And again, there's so many different ways to do this. You just do whatever it is that you have, whichever method you like, and whatever it is fabric-wise that you have left. And I'm going to flip. My machine doesn't always like going backwards when I've got just a little piece of fabric. So that's where the stiletto helps, and just going in the opposite direction helps. Okay, so we're going to trim off the excess, trim off the threads, turn this right sides out, tuck our zipper in, and I've got black fabric with white polka dots, a gray zipper, and white thread. So I highly recommend that you use a matching thread. If you're using a heavier weight thread, then white would look really nice, especially if you're taking your time to stitch really nice and straight. A heavyweight thread makes it look intentional, that top stitching. All right, so we're turning this right sides out. I'm going to poke with my stiletto, one corner, and the next corner. We'll put our zipper inside. There's another method where you take your fabric and you stitch it on the zipper itself and then flip it back over. Do y'all know that method that I'm talking about? I did that in the green one. And that was originally what I planned to do for this, but I changed my mind. What's new? All right, so let's stick our zipper inside. And it should be just a little bit bigger than my zipper itself. You can make it a lot bigger. On some of the zipper tabs, I made it a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, but a good 1/2 inch bigger, maybe 1/4 of an inch on each side, a little bit bigger, but you can see how that's a little bit bigger than what I have there. And what we're going to do is stitch down. And the silver is right here. And you notice how this is a little bit wider, a little bit wider? That's just poking out those stitches and the edges a little bit and pressing that down. And again, take the time to do that. We won't so much. All right, make sure that that zipper is basically, you know, centered between one side and the next. Take your time on this. All right, I would stitch one more time across, but you get the idea. And not so pretty. It moved a little bit. And again, that's where you're going to take the time to do this well. But you guys know those kinds of things, the devil's in the details and taking your time doing this. But let's take a look at our zipper case. This is our scissors pouch or scissors holder. And you can see this guy here was made from this template here. We've got our zipper tab, we've got our wide mouth opening, and cut your threads, do your pressing, do all those little finishing techniques. When you do your top stitching around the top, when we get to here, because this is thin enough, most machines will be able to allow you to stitch all the way around. But if you feel the need and feel that your machine's not going to work at it well, then stop right here. Lock in those stitches, cut your threads, start back over here and stitch around. Okay guys, so this is ready for me to attach one of these little guys here. And you could attach this here. I'm going to attach this one here instead. And you can see, meow, ready to go. All right, so there is a zipper pouch, scissor holder pouch, whatever you want to call it. It's just a really cool pouch to be able to put your little goodies in. By the way, you can also make this into a crossbody bag. How many of you wear crossbody bags? You've seen things like this before. So this, with this little clip here, when you find these at garage sales, at flea markets, at wherever on sale, take that out, leave all of this, and place this right over here instead of what I have here, and place this right over here, and now you can wear this as a crossbody bag. I want you all to see and imagine that I have this crossbody bag right here. How cool would that be? So this guy, this strap that's on here, crossbody bag. So now you can keep your whatever it is that you want in there. All right, guys, so scissor holder, case, this you can find on my website, winnerdesigns.com. You're going to click on products and templates. When you're there, you'll see the search box. In the search box, type in the word holder, H-O-L-D-E-R. If you type in scissors, you're going to see a bunch of scissors that I have as well, but the scissor holder shows up first. That's the very first template that you see. And again, it's pretty versatile. So I don't want you to think about it just for scissors. That was my original intention when I made this, but it holds so many other things. And it's just a cool design. And if you've worked with zippers, then you know how easy this is because it's nice and straight. You can do the traditional zipper method. I wanted to show you a little bit different, but the traditional zipper method where those ends are caught in the sides, it really is faster and easier. So you can whip these up really, really fast. Have fun with this. And if you have any questions, you've got my phone number, 850-449-0259. You'll see it on the screen and you'll see it in the description below. The reason why I give you my phone number is you can get hold of me. I love talking to you guys. So call me if you have any questions. And by the way, I have discount codes a lot of times. So be on the lookout. You'll see them in the written descriptions and you'll see them on my Facebook page. If you follow me on Facebook, it's Winner Designs for Sewing and Quilting. And I post about what I'm up to, new videos, new projects, new templates, my kitty cats, my studio, different things that Philip's been making for me and you. So there's lots of good information there. So I hope to see you there. Please like, comment, and share this and anything that you see from me that helps me out so I can continue to bring you more projects and more sewing and quilting ideas to make what you do faster, easier. Thanks.